What is up, all of my beautiful freaking people? Welcome back to another episode of FML Talk. Today's episode, we are bringing on Miss Brianne Davis. She is an actress and most recently an author and all around wonderful woman and human being. And we are going to dive into the female perspective of something we have talked about before on this show, and that is sex addiction. Sit back, grab a drink. We are going there with Miss Brianne. Welcome to FML Talk.
Oh my God. Wait, how old was the other girl?
19. Can you believe that shit?
Hey, this is Gabrielle Stone.
Good book?
He did what? 48 hours?
What a dick.
Yeah, but have you seen all the photos on her Instagram? And this is FML Talk.
Oh, no, she didn't.
Okay, everybody. So it was important to me after we had Mike Cosson on for his episode, which actually we ended up breaking into 2 episodes, that we brought a female on that could speak on sex addiction. And she's not only recovered, but she has held true to her recovery, and her story is really inspirational and really beautiful to witness her journey and her growth and her insights and the difference of what a sex addiction looks like for her in particular in comparison to the one we looked at with Mike. I do want to preface the fact that Brianne and I recorded this episode before some recent events took place in our friend Jana's life. I have been in touch with Jana. I have told her that my FMLers are all sending her prayers, sending her love, and she's doing really good. And don't worry, we will be eventually recording a follow-up episode for you guys. It's just a matter of finding the time to do that. But we did record this before all of that went down. And now looking back on all of it, it's really interesting to see how Brianne's story is so very different than the one that Mike shared with us and spoke about. It's technically the same addiction, but their traits within that addiction are very different. And it was really insightful to hear from Brianne's perspective the way she identified having that addiction. And I think a lot of people listening will relate to different aspects of what she was chasing after in her life, and really resonate with some of the feelings and hurt places that stemmed from. I know I did in a lot of ways. And she's just a wonderful human being, and she's very, very fun. I'm also so proud of her because I mentored her throughout her self-publishing journey, and her book, Secret Life of a Hollywood Love and Sex Addict, is now available and has hit the bestsellers rank multiple times. And I know some of you guys have seen me post about it on my story. I know a bunch of my readers and listeners have DM'd me that they read it and loved it. And we're going to dive into all the things, guys. It's a really wonderful journey that she's been on, and I can't wait to share it with you. So without further ado, Miss Brianne Davis. Miss Brianne Davis, welcome to FML Talk, girl.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Yay!
I'm so proud of the fact that you have put this incredible book out into the world, and we're going to get to all that later, but I'm more so excited to just talk to you because, as you know, I did an episode with Mike Cosson, who's our mutual friend Jana's husband, and he is open about his, sex addiction and his recovery. So I'm really, really excited to dive in with you and get the female perspective on all of that.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I saw he was on your show, and we have such a different, his behavior and my behavior is so different, but we're in the same world of, sex and love addiction and all that. So I am excited to share my experience, strength, and hope.
Yes, I love that. Okay, so let's just dive the fuck in, girl, and rip the Band-Aid off. Take me back to the beginning and where it all began.
Oh my God. So I guess if I was gonna go back at a very young age, I saw movies and things way too young that I shouldn't have seen. So my favorite movie that I loved growing up at 6 and 7 was Romeo and Juliet. And I remember seeing the main actor's butt because their love scene, and I was like, oh my God, that is a nice ass.
Ah!
Like, at such a young age, I saw that ass and I was like, that's a good ass. And then at the end of the movie, I remember thinking, wait, that's what real love looks like. It has to be so passionate. One or two people have to be willing to die for each other. Like somebody's got to like drink some poison or stab themselves or, I think they were only together for 2 days. So I had this unrealistic view of what real love looked like. So I carried that on. And what happened, and somebody asked me this the other day, like, what was that moment if you could go back and change? When I was in 8th grade, had a boyfriend, as much as you could have a boyfriend, and his friend, I walked in the closet at this party, right? And his friend came in after me and shut the door, and I turned around as like a little like 8th grader, like, I don't know what's going on. And he walked towards me and he kissed me. And girl, I'm not kidding you. My entire body was like on fire. And since that moment, I have been chasing that like cheating, secrets, dirty high attached to my sexuality. So that was the beginning of the end. And I've been doing it since.
That's wild that it started so young, and I so identify with some of the stuff that you said. I was just talking a couple episodes ago about how I realized that that high I felt in my relationship with Javier was toxic, and I didn't realize that, but in that relationship it defined what I now knew as love, and it was toxic. So I think it's so crazy that started for you at such a young, pivotal age where you're like, oh, this is what I should be chasing my entire life.
Yeah, I mean, it was so intoxicating. I wish you could know. You remember people always say like heroin addicts or alcoholics, when they have that first drink, that high they felt, that like intoxication is what we chase. And I didn't know for a long time. Every relationship I had, I was chasing that. And as soon as that like infatuation, butterflies, the falling in love feeling, as soon as that waned, which always happened at like a year for me, I would be like, oh, this is not real love. And I would be searching and intriguing and flirting and using men in my life to give me that attention. And when I found someone that like, oh, now I'm getting high with this person, I would overlap the relationships instead of being, like, hey, I'm not that into you anymore.
Right.
Because I was a scared, like, I didn't want to be abandoned, but then I didn't want to abandon them. It was this weird, crazy, like addict behavior I was doing.
Where do you think your fear of abandonment comes from?
Oh, my parents, 100%. I mean, how much therapy I've done. I've done 8 years of therapy on top of being in a 12-step program for Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. But I remember my dad and my mom hated each other. Like, I never saw a healthy relationship. I never saw a man and a woman hold hands, kiss. They didn't sleep in the same bed together. My parents didn't. So I never had a modeled healthy relationship. And I always saw my dad, like, abandoning my mom emotionally. And I just remember looking at him going, I'm never going to let somebody do that to me. Like, I'm never going to have both feet in the relationship because I don't want this to happen to me.
Right. Right. So, okay, so you went through all of this and it started to manifest when you were an adult getting into, regular relationships. What was the first relationship you had where you were like, oh, this is a fucking problem?
Oh, girl, I think all my relationships were a fucking problem. Because I would pick people that I could have power and control over. It wasn't even like, oh, is this person compatible with me? I mean, my high school boyfriend, he was a drug dealer in the South. And it was like, we were like these two blonde, he was a drug dealer. And he was like giving me the money. And it was just so toxic. And we were together for 10 years on and off, me and my high school boyfriend. Yeah, it was pretty codependent, I would say. He came from a bad family and, my family wasn't like the most stable. So we really leaned on each other and we became best friends. And so when that moment of not getting high from him anymore, I got another boyfriend in high school and he was in college. So I had a boyfriend for two boyfriends for 2 years.
Oh
So
my
that
God.
was
And
like,
did either of them know about the other?
yeah, I got caught 3 times, like bold
Okay.
face caught, like. And then here's the thing, I was such a good liar. I would manipulate and be like, "No, you didn't see that. No, we were just friends." Like I would just
Right.
talk my way out of it and drive them crazy.
I mean, you were
I just
gaslighting them.
pretty much I was totally gaslighting them and be like, "No, no, no. I didn't do that. That wasn't me. You saw something you didn't really see."
Right.
I mean,
Wild.
it
Which
was
is
crazy.
exhausting, even at such
So
a young age.
exhausting.
Okay, so eventually when you leave them, when was it that you came to LA to start pursuing acting?
Well, I waited for a year after high school because I had to, get money and so I could come and move out here. And I was working in Atlanta at the time, and I was still with my high school boyfriend that I was on and off with. And he came out to visit me in LA, and I was already starting to date somebody else, of course, behind his back. And he came out and said, "I'm going to move out here. Like, we can get a house. We can, And I remember he told me this at the airport when he was leaving to go back to Atlanta. And I looked at him and I said, I can't do this anymore. Like I had this consciousness come in that I wasn't ever aware of. And I just like, I have to let him go. Like, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. And that was like a moment when I realized like, I have to stop. So I stopped and I finally broke up with him. And here's the thing, I thought that was over, right? I grew out of it. I was in my 20s, like I was done. And my bottom really hit is when I had a live-in boyfriend, and he was like the first guy I was like as in love as I could be in love, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he was the person that, if we weren't together, I'd want to be his best friend. Like he's someone
Right.
I really cared about and trusted and said like this is a great person. And what happened was a mentor of mine died. And I found myself 2 days later on location in another city about to act out. It's like this
Mm,
traumatic thing happened and all that came out again. And I was like, flirting and intriguing with this person, about to cheat on somebody I really cared about. And I was in my dark hotel room, those sad hotel rooms out on
right.
location when you're by yourself, like eating room service.
Yeah.
And I remember looking in the hotel mirror and going, am I going to be doing this the rest of my life? Like, it can't be every other person not giving me what I need. I'm going to be doing this the rest of my life. Am I going to be on my deathbed, never connected to another soul? And it
Mm-hmm.
was that moment for me that I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is something really wrong with me.
Right. And did you
Yeah.
end up crossing the line when you were there?
No, I was this close though. I was
Yeah.
literally that close. And it was someone, and this really what hit me too. It was someone I didn't even like.
Mm,
It was someone I didn't even, he was like rude to waiters. And I just was like, what am I doing? It was just
right.
such the oddest thing. I found myself almost like floating out of my body, being like, oh my God, this is still in me. I'm still going to do this to somebody else.
Right. It was like complete self-sabotage at that
Yeah,
point.
complete.
Okay, so you have this realization, and
Mhm.
then what does that prompt for you to go do?
Well, I call our mutual friend, Danielle Harris, and I'm like, something's
Oh,
got to give.
love
Yay,
Danielle.
Danielle. And she set me up with her therapist. And I went back and I called the therapist and I went in. And the first session, she said 2 things to me. And the first one pissed me off like really bad. She said, you wear the mask of one of my other clients that's a high class prostitute. I was like,
Wow.
excuse me? Like, I was so pissed looking at her, being like, what? Because
Tough love.
right? Yeah, and we just met. But here's the thing, like, I've never had a one night stand, girl. Like, I
Hmm.
don't have a lot of sexual partners. For my age, especially. Like, so when she said that to me, I was like very taken aback. And then the second thing she said was, you're a sex and love addict. And I was like, what are you talking? I had the same reaction as Jana did, where she's like, that's a guy thing. Like, that's not
Right.
like a thing. And I filled out these 40 questions. So if anybody's listening, there's these 40 self-diagnosed questions for sex and love addiction. You can go on. It's like, are you always trying to find somebody to fix you? Do you have sex when you don't want to have sex? Do you, masturbate when you're having intense feelings? Things like that. Like they're 40 questions. And I filled it out. And let's just say I think you have the book. I don't know if you read that part yet, but my number's really, really high. And I got in my car and I drove down the 101 in tears, like hysterically crying. And I called my live-in boyfriend and I said, she says I'm a sex and love addict, like hysterically crying, like a crazy person. I'm sure somebody next to me was like, what is that girl doing over there? But I get home and he printed up all the meetings in LA and highlighted all the meetings I could go to.
Wow.
And I found myself that night walking into, I don't know if you've ever been to a 12-step meeting, but like a shitty rec room in a church, which I don't go to church. So that's just weird. And fluorescent lighting. There was 40 people sitting around, all walks of life, like an A-list celebrity to a janitor, to like every ethnicity you can imagine. And I sit down and I listen, and it was like I started to cry because I realized like I wasn't broken or alone. Like I just didn't get the tools to have a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
So it was just a really turning moment for me to like step in and be like, oh, I'm okay. I'm not a horrible person. I've just done horrible things.
And I'm not the only person that deals with this.
Yeah. Yeah. And that really made me just feel like, okay, like I was actually really happy. Lots of people hate walking in the rooms, but I was really happy walking in the rooms because I didn't feel alone for the first time in my life.
Right. So when you came to the conclusion that you were a sex and love addict, what to you, what were your things? Because I know you mentioned they're different from what Mike deals with. What are your things that classify you as that, would you say?
Well, I have multiple relationships at the same time. So I would overlap every relationship. I would have somebody in line so that I would never have to be alone. I think the longest time I was single is like 6 months in my entire life. So I think that really classifies. I think always chasing that love high is a big one. Being in fantasy about what relationships should look like. Watching movies. There's a lot of no-go movies for sex and love addicts. Like The Notebook is like a no-go movie. Like you do not watch. Oh, girl, you do not watch The Notebook. Like everybody
Wait, why?
knows.
Because that's like an unattainable, unrealistic love?
Yes, first of all, it's a triangle, right? So she's choosing.
Got it.
They're all being inappropriate, and she's got to choose between this guy that doesn't have money, but he loves her so much, and he's been writing her forever, and then this other guy that's like there for her, and but then she's like torn between them, and then the whole scene of like running in the rain and the rain all over, and I'm, and like slamming against the wall. The whole thing is just like fantasy. Like, first of all, love making does not look like that. And actually, if you've ever been an actor and worked in the rain, it's absolutely miserable. Like the worst time ever.
I can attest to that.
And love scenes are so awkward. Like you and I've talked about this.
The worst.
The worst. So you're like, can you touch here? Can you put your hand here? You can touch, like it's just so awkward. So that is just one where it makes like a fantasy addict like me and someone that is obsessed with falling in love, it just triggers all that like fantasy and intrigue. So
right. Okay. So the having multiple relationships or lined up relationships that overlapped, and what else?
Masturbating when you're having a feeling is a big one for love addicts because
like what kind of feeling?
So we're not allowed to masturbate when we're sad, angry, lonely, bored, all those things, because we use that as an outlet not to feel our feelings. So for me, it looked like if it was never off the table for me. A lot of male sex and love addicts can't masturbate at all. Like they have to take it off the table. because you're not sharing your intimacy with someone else. You're getting off alone, which I think masturbation is great. But when you use it in an unhealthy way, say I'm sad and
Right.
all of a sudden I want to masturbate, it's like, okay, wait. Why am I sad? What's going on? My husband just hurt my feelings? Did I
Mm-hmm.
not get the job? Or do I feel insecure in some way? You know what I mean?
Right.
So that was a big one. Here's another thing I don't do. And I realize I can't have guy friends at all. I have
Oh,
no guy
wow.
friends. Yeah.
Oh,
So
how
for me,
interesting.
mhm.
And that's because why? Because you're
Well,
tempted to.
it's not tempted to. It's just any way, even if it's a small bit, any way for me to use another person to fill me. So I believe when a male and a female are in a relationship, or whoever's attracted to two females,
Right, right.
one or the other person wants to have sex with them.
Mm,
Somebody would have sex, usually.
yeah.
you know? So for me, I just always, with my guy friends, I flirted with them.
Mm-hmm.
I made them like me even though I didn't like them. And I just realized I was raping them, is what I like to call raping them for their energy. So when I got
Mm,
sober in the program, I stopped all guy friendships. Didn't email, talk, or text any guys whatsoever. And it got to the point where I didn't even talk to waiters when they came up
wow.
at restaurants because I realized I would flirt with anything and anybody. Like I
Right.
flirted with the door because I thought, oh, this is my personality. I'm just a flirt. This is who I am.
Right,
And it's
right.
like, no,
That's so
actually.
interesting. And that brings up such a touchy topic for so many people. I actually had one of my listeners submit a question, and it's actually going to fit perfectly into this right now. And that was, do you think you can be friends with an ex? And I think that ties into the same, do you think you can be friends like in a male female dynamic? And it's so interesting that you say that because I can say, I have a lot of guy friends.
Mhm.
A lot of them are in relationships, some of them aren't. But when you really look at it, you're like, well, no, we're totally just friends. But like, would he fuck me?
Yes.
Probably.
Thank you.
So
Thank
it's
you.
a really fine line as to, I believe that you can have healthy relationships with the opposite sex, and you've both established those boundaries, and you've both said like, no, like we're just friends and that's not ever going to go there. But does that mean that one of the people in their brain isn't like, well, I've, maybe fantasized that about that once? Like, you can't ever guarantee that. So it's a really hot topic that people debate about all the time, like whether you can be friends with an ex or friends with an opposite sex where it's not, in somebody's brain.
Well, I always think you got to look at it too as like, why do I want this person still in my life? Why do I still want an ex in my life if we're not together? We were intimate, we shared a connection, but once that relationship is over, what's the point of keeping it in your life? Is it
Mm-hmm.
fulfilling something in you that you need? Is it holding on to the past? I just found for me, and I'm just saying for me, that whenever I kept a guy or an ex in my life, it gave me some sort of power and control over the other person, or
Right.
living in the past, or not being fully into my relationship. And that's not fair to my partner at all. And it's too toxic, it's too deadly, it's too slippery of a
Yeah,
slope to go back in for me.
totally. And it's a weird dynamic when you're in a committed relationship. Tay, my boyfriend, is friends with a few of his exes, and one of them I've even like went and had lunch with, because we ended up being in the same country at the same time, and it was such a beautiful, weird experience for me. But those relationships are from decades ago. It's not like I don't think I could ever go be friends with Javier and Tay would be like, oh yeah, this is totally fine. It's a really like weird thing to navigate. I have exes from college that, I mean, I can't say friends is the appropriate term because it's not like we like
Mhm.
hang out ever or talk all the time. But like I have nothing bad towards him. We follow each other on social media. We'll like randomly be like, "Oh yeah, dude, how are you?" Like there's no weirdness between us at all because it was so long ago. But
Right.
the more intense, deeper relationships, I think it's a really hard thing to navigate. if you're trying to be in a relationship and still continue a friendship with that person.
Yeah, and definitely when you're an addict addicted to fantasy and love and sex and all that, that is just dangerous for
Yeah.
me in all sense. Like it just keeps me out a little bit. It takes a part of me away. Like even a
Yeah.
text, like happy birthday. I do not respond to any exes texting me happy birthday. Like you do not
Wow.
need to be wishing me a happy birthday. I wish them no ill will, and it wasn't like a
Right.
dramatic. Not all of them were like dramatic. Some of them just, faded away. It wasn't always so dramatic, but I just realized like, why am I keeping them in? Is it really important? Are they a part of my life now? Are they adding anything to my life? I care about them, but then it's like, but I don't want them in my life every day. So it's just really looking at like, why would I need this person still in my life?
Right. Yeah, I totally get that. So you go into do all the meetings,
Mhm.
and then you're still with the live-in boyfriend that you had at the time?
Yes, yes. I'll go through that. That was really painful. The first year of withdrawal from a sex and love addiction or an unavailable person or a breakup or, getting rid of porn or masturbation or cheating, all that stuff, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's torture. It's torture. It's like the worst withdrawal known to man. And I'm not saying other drugs are bad withdrawals, but for example, this one guy came in at my 6 months and he said, I can quit heroin, but I can't quit her. And
Mm,
that to me was such like oh, this is like no joke. And I
yeah.
cried every day for 9 months.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break because I have some news. I don't know about you guys, but I've been having serious issues with the thought of putting jeans on ever again after the pandemic. And if you watch any of my videos, you know that I live in workout clothes and sweatpants. Vuori swooped in and saved the day. All of their stuff can be used to work out in, but is stylish enough to wear just about anywhere I need to go. Their joggers are the softest things I have ever put on my body, and I literally never want to take them off. They're also reducing and offsetting 100% of their plastic footprint by using sustainable materials for their products, which I love. Vuori is an investment in your happiness. For our listeners, they are offering 20% off your first purchase, so you can get yourself some of the most comfortable and versatile clothing on the planet at vuoriclothing.com/FML. That's VUORI.com/FML. Not only will you receive 20% off your first purchase, but you'll get free shipping on any U.S. orders over $75 and free returns. Go to vuoriclothing.com/FML and discover the versatility of Vuori clothing. All right, let's get back to the show. Wow.
Every day on the floor, crawling at the floor. And we lived in a small apartment and we had a couple rules, my boyfriend and I. He wasn't allowed to fix me. He wasn't allowed to come and comfort me.
Wow.
I was doing therapy twice a week. I was going to 4 meetings a week. Um, and we didn't have sex for the first year of my sobriety and sex and love
Wow.
addiction. Yeah, because I didn't have my sexuality. I was giving it out in like
Mm-hmm.
dirty secret ways. And
Mm-hmm.
I always felt like I was playing a role too when I would
Oh
act
my
out
God. I
sexually.
so identify with that.
Right?
There was a moment where I looked at myself in the mirror and was like, why am I like fucking putting on a show and performing for all of the people I'm having sex with? Not all of the people. I sound like I'm sleeping with the world, but it's like instead of being like, oh, dude, this is how like you could do something for me in bed.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
always felt like this performance factor of like I have to please my partner and like let me like make it a show for them. So I so
Yeah.
identify with that.
Oh, that makes me so happy. And this is going to get a teeny bit graphic, and I haven't talked about this, but even like a guy going down on me, like
Mhm.
I wasn't really interested. First of all, it felt too intimate. Like I don't like
Mhm.
this too intimate. Like it makes me really uncomfortable. And then the second thing is like, I, I just didn't even want them to try. It was so
Mhm.
weird. I would rather like just get it over with. So that's the
Right.
thing. Like you can be a sex and love addict and it's not about the sex. It was
Right.
about like the lead up to the sex, the intriguing, the like first holding hands, first kissing, first doing
Mm-hmm.
this, first doing that. I wanted that. And when it got to the sex, that just felt like, oh, I just have to do it. It's not really about this. Like, let me
Oh,
just get it over
interesting.
with. Yeah. So it was this weird,
I'm interested
not,
because you and I both come from this like abandoned, fear of abandonment place from our childhood. And I had
Mhm.
this like huge fucking revelation when I was on my FML trip in Mykonos that I was using sex to keep people in like close to me. So that I wouldn't be abandoned. So I was literally giving up this part, this piece, this sacred piece of myself so that I could keep people close to me and therefore not be abandoned. And it was such this like twisted, fucked up circle of like, well, why would you give something like that to someone to keep yourself safe when
Mhm.
the act of doing that with someone that's not going to take care of your heart is putting you in danger anyways. It was like this weird vicious circle. Do you identify with that at all?
I do, but for me, when you even talk about it, it's just reminding me like I felt like I never owned my sexuality. I was
Mm.
sexualized at such a young age. I was molested very young, which I didn't remember until I did therapy for, I
Oh,
think in the
wow.
fifth year, I had this like I blacked it out. I always felt sexualized at a very young age as a woman. I mean, 1 in 3 women are molested at some point in their life. So I felt like I didn't own my sexuality. So I had no
Hmm.
problem giving that part of me away because it wasn't mine.
Interesting.
Anyways, I was disconnected. I actually told my therapist, I feel like cut off from my vagina. Like I don't
Wow.
feel like my heart does not feel connected to my private part.
Wow. That's
Mhm.
heavy.
Yeah. It was a lot of trauma that came up. That's what was happening. All that pain, all that taken advantage of, all that, put on a pedestal. Even when I said, I'm like a broken, like, don't put me on a pedestal because they would do that. And I was like, don't do that because my dad did that. So it was like this weird thing with the father issues. And I just kept stuffing it down with people and people and people, even friendships. I realized I use my friendships.
Yeah.
Like I would call a friend, say I call you, and I'd keep you on the phone with me for 20 minutes talking about my problems or some drama. And I would get off the phone and not feel better and immediately call another girlfriend and pick up the
Right.
phone and be like, blah, 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 whatever. And then hang up. And I had this moment on Melrose after an audition. It was so funny. I was sitting there and I did it to 4 girlfriends,
Hmm.
and none of them made me feel better. And I go, oh my God, I do this with everybody in my life. I use them to make me feel better.
Right.
And that's not fair.
Yeah. And like it's never going to work unless you're making yourself feel better.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it was hard that first year, like I said. It was
Oh,
torture.
I can't imagine. And like as shitty as it sounds for your boyfriend at the time to not have sex for a year, it's almost shittier to see your partner lying on the floor and not be able to go wrap them in your arms. I mean, like Tay would never be able to, even when we're in a fight and he's mad at me and I start crying, he can't not come over to me. I mean, I can't imagine having to just like watch that and let it happen.
Well, here's the beautiful thing. He was in a 12-step program. I think at that time he was in a 12-step program for 20 something years. So he understood that my addiction, my flirting and stuff had nothing to do with him.
Right.
And that's what, I really want to make apparent. If somebody cheats on you, if they do these things, it has nothing to do with him. He could
Mhm.
be the most perfect guy in the world, even though there's nothing about being a perfect person. We're all flawed.
Yeah.
But he could, I would have acted out anyways. So I think he knew, because it happened to him at such a young age, that I had to go through this withdrawal. And we were both willing to lose each other. I think that really helped us. Like, if I had to break up with him to get better for me, he was okay with that because he cared about me that much. Oh
Yeah.
my God, I'm going to cry. Sorry.
Oh. So how did that end up ending? Because it obviously did at some point.
Yeah, I mean, we're together now. We're married.
Oh my God, that's your husband? Wait, stop. I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're
Oh my
married.
God, my heart. Wow.
Oh my God, I'm crying. Like, we've been together for 16 years, like, I never wanted to get married. I never wanted to have a kid. I have a kid that's almost 3 years old. And here's the thing I just have to say, like, it's not that I went through the program. I have 11 years of sobriety and sex and love addiction. It's not that I went through the program and found the perfect partner that completed me. I went through the program and found myself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I love myself more than anything today. And now I'm I have both feet in a relationship. I have an equal partner, and he doesn't fill me. He doesn't complete me. I don't believe someone can complete you. I don't believe there's a soulmate out there,
Mm-hmm.
because if my husband Mark left me today, I would be okay. I would be devastated. Like, he's
Yeah.
an amazing guy, but he doesn't complete me. And that, yeah. So we've been together. I'm like gonna cry. Yeah.
I love that. Oh my God, what a fucking magical story. And like, hats off to Mark, dude. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
dude.
amazing. That's amazing. So after your year of, when you were first in the 12-step program, did you then have to have a conversation of how you were going to reintroduce sex into the relationship?
Oh, yes.
What was
You have to
that
ask.
like?
This is the worst. It's the worst. So it was like we had a lot of exercises and things. Like, we had to like hug and not do anything. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I would want to squirm out of the hug because intimacy was just too much.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I loved you, I didn't want to have sex with you, pretty much. Like,
Mm.
you see me too much. So we really had to slowly incorporate, like laying naked together and it not turning sexual, which
Right.
was so awkward for me because I just want to, like, let's just get this. And like eye contact during sex, which I'm like, stop looking at me so deeply. Like, so
Don't look
it
into my
was,
soul.
yeah, like, stop looking at, like, I want to just close my eyes. And it was things like that. And I'm going to be transparent, like, still to this day, sometimes it's hard for me. I don't want to be completely intimate and seen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that was torturous. That was like a 6-year process of like
Wow.
bringing it back in. And then, we would be intimate. And then a part of me be like, let's do it again. And he'd be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, no. So it was like a bunch of just testing the waters, bringing it back in a healthy way.
Wow. What a journey you two have been on together.
Yeah, totally.
Unbelievable. So then what inspired you to write this incredible book that you just released, which is an Amazon new release bestseller already? I'm so
I
proud of
know.
you.
Well, with your help, you totally
Well,
helped
yeah,
me.
for everyone listening, I kind of mentored Brienne in the process of what it's like to
Kind of.
self-publish. Well, yeah,
You
I did.
did.
To self-publish and yeah, how to like do it without a publishing company behind you. Because I think you and I were similar in the sense of like, well, we can go shop it to publishers, but even if it gets picked up at a publishing company, it's going to take 2 years to fucking
Yeah.
get it out into the world. And both of our souls were like, no, this needs to happen on our timeline. So what inspired you to put all of this into your book?
Well, I just have to say I'm so grateful for you. Any chick is lucky to have a mentor like you. So you really
Oh,
guided me on so many levels, and I couldn't have done it without you. Honestly, like, I will be saying your name in praise for like ever. So
oh,
I just
thank
have
you.
to say that, yeah, to be so giving and open and transparent and like the ins and outs, that just means so much to me.
Oh,
But yeah, I think I was like you. Like, I'm not a writer. First of all, I'm dyslexic and have ADHD, and I just terrible at English. And I'm like, I'm not the writer. Just give me the dialogue and I'll go act it out. So,
mm-hmm.
what happened was I hit a decade of recovery in sex and love addiction. And in that program, it's really hard to get time. So, once you have 10 years or so, you're like an old timer. I'm an old timer. I have like sponsees all over the world. I speak all over the world. I do these big 45-minute shares. So what happened, I was doing the show with Jana. We were working on the show together, pitching the show, and my husband looked at me and he goes, "There's this like writing course. I feel like you need to take it." And I looked at him like, "Are you insane? Like, what are you talking about? I'm not taking a writing course, crazy."
Mm-hmm.
And girl, he just kept mentioning it over and over again, 6 times. And finally I'm like, "Fine, I'll take it." He's like, "Listen, you take it. It's not that much money. If you don't want to finish it, just try it. Just try it." And I was like, "Okay." It's a 90-day writing course. And I wrote the first draft in 45 days. Like, it was like something was coming through me.
Yep. Yep.
It wasn't me. And when I say I wrote the book, like, it wasn't actually me. Like, something bigger than me wrote the book. And the process of like rewriting it, and then all these stories came out of, my imagination, my own experience, other people, and I just created this character that is me, but it's not me. It can be, her name's Roxanne. She can be anybody. And the reason I gave her the name Roxanne is because I heard the Police song,
Yeah.
Roxanne,
Yep.
because like anybody could be, go to dinner and do a sexual act they didn't want to, or have their rent paid, or get a purse. Like we all
Mhm.
have done some kind of Roxanneism. Um, so yeah, I wrote this about this girl that is some of, it's kind of a memoir. It was a memoir at first, but I changed it to fiction, a Roma Clef fiction, because it's like a self-help memoir and like chick lit kind of thing.
Mhm.
And she goes through her first year, which is very similar to mine, in sex and love addiction and being an actress, and how she navigates Hollywood with having this disease. And there's a lot of stories from being on set, other people, other celebrities. I've changed all the names so no one can sue me, as you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just became bigger than me. And it was something that as soon as it was down on paper, I just knew it had to be out there. I knew I had to step forward and say, "Hey, I'm a face and a name to this disease." So
Yeah.
I wrote an article before the book came out for HuffPost, and it hit, 1.2 or 1.6 million hits the first couple of weeks. And I just got all these people outpouring to me saying, "Oh my God, I've done that," or "My boyfriend does that," or "My girlfriend does
Mhm.
that," or "My wife is like that." And it just made me like, okay, this is bigger than me. I need to actually be of service to the world now, and just not my community of sex and love addicts.
Yeah. And I think that's amazing. The more that we speak out and share our own experiences and our own traumas, and it really, so many people benefit from that because they realize that they're not alone. And then we in turn benefit from it because we realize we're not alone.
Yeah.
And I want to point out, I know everybody saw me post about your book when it came out, but I want to point out that it's very much, when I read it, I was like, oh, this is totally my vibe, because it's rare that I find a book that's written like mine, in the sense of like there's F-bombs and you're like talking to the person and it really feels like you're having a conversation with whoever's writing it, and yours really encompasses that. And I think it's so fun and so different. And, I know the people that like enjoyed my book are going to really resonate with it too.
I mean, I would be so lucky. I mean, your fan base is amazing. But I did have this guy, I gave it to old timers in sex and love addiction because I was scared. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, are they going to think I'm talking bad about the community? This is like saved my life. And he said it sounded like a long share. Like the entire book, he read it in a day, and it just felt like a long share.
I
Because
love
when you
it.
go and, yeah, when you go and share in a 12-step meeting, you literally just throw out all your guts. You're like, here I am, all the bad shit, all the things I think, all the subtext I never tell anybody, all the stuff that happened to me. Here it all is. I'm raw and open and vulnerable, and just have all of me. And that's what I wanted to do with the book.
Yeah, I think you hit that directly on the head. And I
Thank you.
mean, it's only been out for what, like a month, not even.
No, I
By the
think
time
2
this
weeks
airs,
now.
it'll have
Yeah.
been out for a little while. But still, I mean,
Yeah.
it's wild to, I know that first wave that you're writing is so crazy. But I know that it's going to help so many people, because it's a topic that doesn't get talked about enough in depth. I think we hear about it in like gossip mags and news stories, but we don't really get the inside, like detailed look behind the curtain. And I think this book really does that.
Yeah, and I think the thing I wanted to do is everybody sees sex addiction or love addiction as this made up disease, or that it's not real or it's not deadly. And I have to just say, I have so many friends that committed suicide over their partners. I've I've spoke at jails for 2.5 years where people murdered other people because there was a love triangle, or they sold drugs for their partner, or they did all these things to keep their lover. And this is a deadly disease, just like drugs and alcohol. It kills. If you watch any Dateline, it's always a
Yeah.
love triangle. Someone's always cheating or doing something. And I just really wanted to make a book that wasn't clinical, that wasn't so educational, because you get one of these sex and love addict books and it's like, ugh, the first page, and you want to just throw it against the wall. And I just really wanted to entertain people, but also educate them that this disease is killing our society. And the social media, the DMing, the swipe left,
Yep.
swipe right, always looking for the next shiny, glamorous thing to fill us, is really affecting this younger generation. So I feel like that it's my duty, and all the shitty things I've done in the past, like I'm making up for it now. I'm like making a living amends. And that's the whole reason I wrote it. It's not for me. It's for the people that don't have the voice to say, I've done these things, or that has been done to me.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And good fucking on you for it, girl. Tell everybody where they can find your book and the title and all the good stuff.
Yeah, it's Secret Life of a Hollywood Sex and Love Addict. It's on Amazon exclusively. Just write in Secret Life Sex and Love Addict if you can't remember the whole the whole title. Or if you want a signed copy, go to secretlifenovel.com, or come visit me on Instagram at the Brianne Davis, or TikTok, because you made me join.
I did.
You did. At the dot to Brianne Davis. So yeah, I'm just so grateful for you. Honestly, I adore you. I love you. I've told you a million times. I feel like you're gonna get sick of it after a while, but
I promise you I never will. And I'm so proud of you. And thank you for coming on and opening up and being so vulnerable, because I know this episode is going to help a lot of people out there.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you for having me.
I want to thank Brianne again for coming on and being so open and sharing her story. I hope you guys really didn't look at it from necessarily a sex addict point of view, but just a human point of view, because I feel like so many of the qualities and the traits in her addiction that she spoke about come up in a lot of people's lives that have dealt with abandonment and fear and that needing love. So I hope that you were able to listen from a neutral standpoint and really take away some good tidbits that she shared with us today. Okay, it is about that time. We are going to dive into your FML stories.
Hi, Gabrielle. My name is Genevieve. We have similar life stories. I married in 1997, not out of love, but I settled. We had 3 kids together. In between that time, I lost my father to suicide in 2000. Later, he had lost his mother to cancer. Our marriage was a stressful one, mostly due to finances and his lack of keeping jobs. In 2017, he was having an affair with his coworker, 18 years younger than him. I caught him and kicked him out. There are other stories that followed. Fast forward, post-divorce, 4 years later to current. I get weight loss surgery. I lose 112 pounds. Caught the eye of a Formula Popular high school guy. Imagine my feelings. He pursued me entirely. He was divorcing, second marriage, made me feel like absolute sunshine, as I did for him. A month and a half later, after strong universal connections and talk of a future plans together, he pulls the carpet out, saying he needed 30 days to get through his divorce. Mind you, I am leaving out all the red flag and details. I had not heard from him in those 30 days, which broke my heart, and a lot of gray area. Your story of Javier made me realize a lot of things that made me cry many times and inspired me to write a closure letter to my love affair, and strong consideration to moving to another state away from where I have been all my life to start fresh, although a trip to Europe would be more exciting.
Oh, girl, I can so identify with marrying someone, I didn't at the time realize it was settling, but I married him because he was safe. So in a way that is. And I'm so happy to hear that you made the decision to remove yourself and start fresh, and that it inspired you to write a closure letter to him, which I did listen to, and I thought it was beautifully written. And, you know, that's what's so great about sharing our stories, the fact that you can read my journey with Javier and discover things that happened in your relationship, and then begin to heal those things. So I'm so happy to hear that you've turned over a new leaf and are moving on from that. So congratulations, girl.
I'm Catherine, and here's my FML story. I was with my husband for 5 years and married for only a year and a half. We were having issues ever since the wedding day because I found out the week before I walked down the aisle, this gym-obsessed meathead had been lying to me about taking steroids for our entire relationship. With him having a prior substance addiction, this was a big deal. Red flag. Even as we honeymooned in Italy, we argued over his betrayal. Funny enough, when I was leaving Rome, Gabrielle was just arriving there on her epic trip. A year and a half later, the tension and arguments in our marriage were constant. I traveled a lot for work, and with his latest work promotion, he had begun to travel to Maryland on his own work trips. One day while cleaning, I found a birthday card addressed to my husband, but not in my handwriting. Seemed he had been seeing this woman in North Carolina for 3 years. He was cheating even while we were engaged. He was never going to Maryland. Gifts, flowers, mini vacations together. He was truly living a double life. He even sent her flowers the week of our wedding. I found all the evidence in our bank account and filed for divorce. Not only was he cheating, but also dealing drugs. After a few months of healing, I took a solo trip to London and was finally beginning to move on. I returned and got asked out on a date by my ex-husband's hockey roommate, a man who was a guest at our wedding. So I gave him a chance. Cut to today, I've never been happier, and I have to thank my toxic ex for bringing this amazing man into my life. So remember, everything really does happen for a reason.
Oh my God, Catherine! First of all, I can relate on finding certain substances, those specific substances, being taken. So I know how jarring that is when you find out. But I mean, dude, sending her flowers the week of your fucking wedding, like, what is the point of even getting married? What is the point of like doing all the things if you are in a full-on other fucking relationship and living a goddamn double life? I will never understand. It's so exhausting. Do better. People, do better. And then cherry on the fucking cake to get asked out by a guy that was a guest at your fucking wedding and cut to you being happily ever after with him. This is a great fucking story. And so indicative of everything happens for a reason, because what if you had never had that fucking wedding and he would have never seen what a beautiful badass bride you were? Oh my God. I love it. And I am toasting you from afar as our paths crossed in Rome, girl. Much love. Next week, I am bringing back my producer / best friend, Jacqueline, and we are doing a full-on questions episode. So a while ago, I put up a question survey on my Instagram, and you guys flooded it with a very good variety of questions, I must say. I mean, we're like all over the map. We've got some personal questions. We've got some book questions. We've got some travel stuff. And I'm bringing her on to co-host with me, and we're just digging in a very uncut style of FML talk. So that is coming at you next week. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed so you never miss an episode. Keep up with us on Instagram at FML Talk Podcast. And until next week, have a self-love cocktail on me. Cheers, guys.